So, hello everyone. Thank you for joining back to welcome back to the next session in the series where we are talking about drama triangle. And so far, we have spoken about the victim role, and then we spoke about the rescuer role. And now, today, we are going to talk about the perpetrator or the victimizer role. Yep. So, as we have understood how the drama triangle works, we see the highest energy in a drama triangle that lies with the perpetrator or the victimizer. At the same time, victimizer is a role which is most difficult to identify. Why? Because if the victimizer is intentionally victimizing a victim, then they have their justified reason for it. Maybe this victimizer has experienced victimhood in the past, where today's victim was the victimizer or the perpetrator. So for today's perpetrator, it is just rage which is in play. They want revenge. And they feel that what they are doing to the victimizer is just appropriate and right. If the victimizer was somebody else and today's victimizer was a victim there, then out of that trauma, they have already developed a way in which they are finding victimizing somebody else as the most natural thing. So again, they will find it difficult to identify that they are doing anything wrong if they are intentionally doing. Okay, they might justify it saying that, yeah, this is how it happens, this is how it goes. On the other hand, if in a situation where a person feeling like a victim and the victimizer is not doing anything intentionally, so their intention is not to victimize the victim, and their behavior is somehow unintentionally still creating the same effect, that is, it is victimizing the victim, then according to them, their intention is not that. And they may not again see it as it is their behavior which is causing something to the victim. Yeah. Let's take an example where a parent is comparing his child with, with a friend of child. Now, the intention behind this comparison, the parent may think that with this comparison, they will inspire or encourage the child to improve on something. But in the process, if the child is feeling low, losing on their self confidence, and then starts reacting out of that, and if this parent is not very aware parent, their reaction would be, what is there to cry? Why are you creating such a big fuss out of something that I'm doing something good for you? Or all of this is good for you. So now again, they are struggling with seeing their behavior as a cause of why the victim feels as a victim, why the victim is in trouble. So many times you have seen in a drama triangle where the person who is feeling like a victim, if they go and complain to the victimizer, they are told that it's just in their head, right? It is not in reality. So the victimizer will remain victim until they can see that how their behavior is impacting another person, whether they are doing it intentionally or unintentionally, and whether they are able to take the responsibility, the ownership of their behavior. So that's the most difficult thing. Yeah. Now, if we look at the victimizer story, we understand one thing for sure, that for a victimizer, whatever they are doing, whether they are intentional about their victimizing or unintentional, but their behavior seems uh, normal to them, okay to them, right? And where is this coming from? This is coming from somewhere they saw it being normal. For example, this parent who was comparing the child with their friend has experienced something similar in the childhood, and thus that conditioning is in play. So for them, it is very natural. Everybody does it, or they themselves have faced it. Yeah. And if they are not in touch with their emotions, if they are not aware about how they felt back then because everybody does it, it is not a big deal. And most of the times, that's how a victimizer is not even able to see how their behavior is actually impacting and if they should change it. That's the reason it is most difficult role to identify. We many times are not able to identify if we are victimizing somebody. Yeah. So that's the reason to identify our role as a victimizer or a perpetrator in the drama triangle, one needs very, very high level of self-awareness, which inbound creates the nature to do a lot of self-reflection. So if one is really genuinely working on themselves and they reflect on each of their action or whatever that they say, they sit and reflect, then such a person will be able to find where they are being a victimizer. So if we compare this with the victim role and rescuer role, it is not as difficult. For victim, they can identify being a victim, but for them, it is difficult to come out of it. Yeah. For a rescuer, they can identify and it can be easy for them to come out of it if they look within instead of trying to help the victim. For a victimizer, noticing that they are a victimizer in a situation and then owning it up can be the most difficult thing. Now, if we change this to the empowerment dynamic, then what happens? The victimizer becomes a challenger. So, the challenger is challenging the creator to create something new. Victimizer is victimizing a victim. So let's go back to the example of the parent and the child. If the parent thinks that they want their child to improve on something, now when they are comparing or they are criticizing, they are actually victimizing the child. Maybe it is very subtle, but they are still victimizing the child because that is leaving a mark on the child's mind. Right? Now, if the parent wants to challenge the child such that the child can create something better in their reality, then what the parent will do will change. right? It will change from comparison and criticizing to finding ways in which they can sit the child down, if child is in that age, of course, and make the child aware of their strengths and their weaknesses. Or maybe the challenger, that is the parent, can actually challenge the child in a very healthy manner, right? Like giving them a task to do, and then giving them some timeline to do that, achieve that, and telling them that you can surely do this. And next time, once you achieve this, I'm going to increase the level. It is going to be maybe lesser time and bigger task, something like that. So now, if you see, the parent in the earlier case was victimizing the child. In the second case, they are challenging the child, where child can use their strengths and maybe become aware of their weaknesses so that they can overcome them, and then create something which the child maybe could not see. Yeah. So when a victimizer becomes aware of what they are expecting out of that person who's feeling like a victim, and instead of pushing their way on them, if they stay true to what is the context behind their actions, why are they doing it? If they are really doing something for the good of that other person, then they will change their way such that they'll challenge the person to create that. Yeah. So the victimizer becomes the challenger, and thus that can push the victim to become a creator. Yeah. So that's how it generally works. Now, with our work, what we have observed is, even if we do not talk about a victimizer becoming a challenger, if a victimizer is in a drama triangle and they are not aware that they are victimizing the victim, okay, and I said that it is the most difficult role to identify within the self, then what can be the way to identify? First thing, when a victimizer is intentionally victimizing somebody, like they are taking revenge, they are violent in some manner, or they are shouting back, they are trying to dominate somebody else. So they are aware that they want to do this, and there might be the emotion of lot of anger and rage, okay, or need to control from for whatever reason. Now, in the first case, if the victimizer feels that they need to give it back, that's why they are victimizing the victim today, because it is just the pure revenge story. It will feel the justified thing to do, right? Because their rage has to be first taken care of. Either during the process or right after that, if the victimizer pauses and thinks that in a bigger picture, okay, what is the exchange that is happening? Exchange is of the pain or the suffering. You gave me the pain, now I'm giving it back to you, right? So, in this story, the exchange is all about pain and suffering. And that is where, if the victimizer pauses and thinks, do I want to play this game? All said and done, it is justified because I have felt that same pain. Maybe I did that now. But end of the day, what am I carrying? I'm carrying the pain and the suffering. Do I want to play this game? And if they ask, and if they choose that no, I want to stop playing this game. So I want to stop being on this ground in my life where I attract the victimhood and then I give back. Then they can look into the suffering that they felt and find ways to overcome that without victimizing the back then victimizer. That's one thing that they can do. Second thing, if they are victimizing somebody intentionally or unintentionally, because that's what happened with them in the past from somebody else. Okay. So in the first case, if they have experienced, for example, today's bully was bullied in the past, right? That's why they know that bully is normal thing. So if they pause and again think that what am I passing? And do I want to be a part of something like this in my life? Or do I want to experience something else? Then again, they can go back to their suffering. And they can become aware that even if they might be enjoying bullying or victimizing, they are somewhere suffering because a part in them has experienced that in the past. And they can come out of it. And if a parent-child story that I gave you as an example, here if the parent thinks that they are doing all for the good for the child, and it is not something so big, they are not intentionally trying to do that. Still, if they can remove themselves from the situation and see it from a neutral perspective, some person is feeling the pain and looks like that they are the cause of it. If they assume if they consider that their behavior is causing that pain to the victimizer in some way, then they can again ask that if this feels normal to me, why is that person feeling so? Is there a possibility that I play a role in this? What I feel normal may not be the normal for my child, or may not be the normal for another person who's feeling like a victim here. Then, even if they are not aware of their past suffering, because they have taken it as normal, right? So for them, that behavior is not a problem today. So they are not aware that they suffered similar thing in the past. Maybe it happened to them and they didn't suffer, they just took it as a normal. But it can create a new kind of awareness in them. And from there, a new self-reflective journey can begin. So this aspect that I'm talking about, this doesn't come about, this does not talk about victimizer becoming a challenger or the empowerment dynamic. We are not going there. But how a person who might be a victimizer in a situation can stop the cycle for themselves. Because whether the victimizer understands it or not, when their action is causing any pain to somebody else, intentionally or unintentionally, that indicates that they have been carrying some kind of pain. They have been carrying some kind of suffering, which is making them behave in that manner. Right? Now, if we relate this to our daily life, then where do we find ourselves as a victim? So one example I can give you is somebody does something, we feel upset about it, and then we start withholding the communication. And the other person wants to communicate or clear the things. And we might not be wanting that. We just want to shut off and we want to cut away all channels of communication. People do that many times, right? Now, in their mind, they are hurting because you did something to me yesterday. But today, by my reaction, I am causing you pain. Yeah. So here, we were a victim yesterday and we are becoming a victimizer in some subtle manner today. So if a self-reflective person will sit in such a situation, they will acknowledge that yes, I'm doing this because I'm not in a state to communicate, but I also understand that it is impacting the other person. So I need to find my balance. How do I handle my emotion? And at the same time, how do I draw a boundary? And maybe in such a way, I can communicate to that person that I'll take some time. And in this case, the drama triangle can end or at least pause because the awareness is shifting. What other examples are there where we unintentionally or subtly become a victimizer? Sometimes we are so hurt that we start, uh, passing comments instead of communicating something directly. Or we start reacting to things because we are not able to put that in the straight manner. This usually happens in the most close relationships. So, withholding the communication, passing on derogatory comments, or criticizing in some manner. And we know that this criticism is not coming from the healthy place, but we are bringing some past hurt. And from there is a texture of reaction to it. So, all of this requires a lot of self reflection. And if we are able to do that, then we can truly find where we are suffering and how we can stand for ourselves. And in the bigger picture, of course, then the drama triangle can end, right? So I think that's what I had to share with you all. I would like you to take a moment and think about places where either in the past you have been a victimizer or today you are a victimizer. If in the past you were a victimizer and you altered it, or you didn't alter but the situation changed because the time changed, so how you can own it up, because that might have left the mark on the victim in that situation or even the rescuer in that situation. And if you are a victimizer today, then what can you do about it? Yeah. So I would like you to take a few moments and then make notes if you haven't made. And then maybe we can start with the share.